Hello, today I want to talk a little bit about OpenAI's deep research they announced, because this is one that I'm actually really excited about. But I do want to take a minute to just say, does it feel to you guys like OpenAI is becoming the Apple of AI companies? Now, don't get me wrong, their product velocity is awesome. They're doing a great job. But what it seems like is they're kind of behind everyone else slightly. They're not really on the forefront, but they're releasing things that are better. And what I'm thinking is Gemini has deep research now. And I actually use that multiple times a day. I use it for any number of things throughout my day-to-day work. And it's one of my go-to things for when I need to do any sort of deep analysis. And I also let my kids use it when they need to do like research papers and stuff like that to gather a bunch of links that they can go use and then use that to actually write their paper. But deep research by OpenAI actually looks significantly better than Gemini. I haven't got my hands on it yet, but in the demos that they've shown and the people that were actually posting about it on X, it looks incredibly good. And I'll get into some of the numbers that they actually report, such as on the humanities last exam, to kind of show how it's actually scoring above everything else. So his announcement, he says, "Today we launched Deep Research, our next agent. This is like a superpower with experts on demand. It can go use the internet, do complex research and reasoning, and give you back a report. It is really good and can do tasks that would take hours slash days and cost hundreds of dollars. In fact, I saw another post that he did where he said it was like 50 cents of compute for $500 of economic value. If that is true, if this ends up being good, this is going to change everyone's job because I've had jobs, especially in when you get into like director levels, where you're researching so much stuff and you spend so much time, and sometimes you even actually contract out companies to do this research for you. And if it can do something that it replaces 90% of that, that is going to just dramatically change the landscape. I actually don't even know the impact that this will have long term, but I will say there is a lot of people out there that spend a significant amount of their time researching things and writing research reports for companies, executives, things like that, that may not be needed anymore, or a much smaller number of them may be needed. This is really, really interesting for me. He goes on to say it is very compute intensive and slow, but it's the first AI system that can do such a wide variety of complex, valuable tasks. Going live in our Pro tier now with 100 queries per month, plus Team and Enterprise will come soon, and then free tier. I'm surprised they're even considering putting that in free tiers. That's kind of cool. Maybe like one query a month, maybe two. So I'm guessing he's talking about the plus tier. Yep, he is. This version will have something like 10 per month in our plus tier. Unfortunately, that won't replace what I need. I'm going to have to still use Gemini for a lot of my things that I want to research. For example, if I want to pull up things on customers or I want to pull up things on competitors, it is so good at pulling all the resources together for me. And have a feeling because of the way the demos have been going with OpenAI's deep research that it's going to be better and I'm going to want to use it more. It might actually be a reason for me to upgrade to the $200 a month plan again, although that sounds very painful because that's just so much money. This is the page that they ended up launching with it. There's a few things I want to point out. So down here at the bottom, there is a video where they actually do the live demo. I just want to showcase this here. So this is an example of a prompt that was given, a query they call it. They gave it a PDF, so basically a research paper, and they asked it some questions. What I liked about this is it actually does a follow-up. So one of the jokes they made during this video was like, it's kind of like a product manager. It's like, okay, I know you want all this. Let me clarify a few things. So it actually asks you to clarify a few points, and then it sets off to work. They've removed the limitations of the response time. So it can take many minutes for it to actually return. And it's built on O3, which is also very exciting because we haven't seen much of the O3, like I'll call it the big boy model, in practice. And this just seems incredible. And so jumping back slightly in the video, this is a question about some research that they're demoing here. And what they're going to do is they're going to kick this off. They've highlighted the deep research button. And what ends up happening is the follow-up questions. I really like those. And the idea that it's able to do that is incredible. So it seems to me like it's almost like a multi-step approach. They probably have a first model that actually gathers the prompt and then decides what the follow-up questions are before it kicks off the entire job. So I wonder if that first model that's sending you this is also O3 or if this is like a lighter version of that model. I am betting it's O3, but they didn't say that for sure. And I will say another thing is like when it actually comes up with the response, which they end up showing later on the video, which you can check out in here, it pops in fairly quick. Here's another example of a response that actually came. Just look at the amount of text that's generated, and you can kind of see they finally zoomed in here, but you can kind of see the links to the particular references. They're scrolling by it pretty fast, but they claim that it'll actually point to the sentence level, which is something that Gemini does not do, that I would be very excited about that being a possibility. I thought this was a pretty interesting graph that they put out. Pass rate versus max tool calls. So you can see the more time you give it, the more tool, basically in this case, I would think about it like search, the model browsing, it actually does get a higher pass rate. So it gets up to 100. You can see there definitely is a turning point here around, it looks like 60. If you were doing like a data science model, you'd be like, okay, this is probably around the inflection point here where you'd actually start seeing diminishing returns. But it is still gradually increasing there. And then they talk a little bit about the pass rate on expert level tasks by estimated economic value. So low, medium, high, very high. You can see pass rate is 9.1, 15 for high, 17 for medium, and 19 for low. And then they pass rate on expert level tasks by estimated hours. 1 to 3 hours, 22%, 4 to 6 hours, 13%, and so on. It's funny that at 10 hours it actually bumped back up again. So estimated economic value of task is more correlated with pass rate than number of hours it would take a human. The things that models find difficult are different to what humans find time consuming. And then they talk about a substantial jump in the humanities last exam. I've actually just been digging into this prior to this even coming out to try to understand more of this. But they do a really good job summarizing it. This is basically a test with 3,000 multiple choice and short answer questions across more than 100 subjects, from linguistics to rocket science, classics to ecology. And this is the largest gain in compared to all of these. Now, I will say it does have an asterisk by it, which means it's not multimodal and it's evaluated on text only subset. And I don't know how many questions there is of the 3,000 that is text only. So to me, these asterisks that are here are actually kind of big asterisks because if we were to count that they can't do any of the multimodal ones, is it really 26.6? So I'm kind of skeptical about this number the more I've kind of read into it, but it is an impressive jump. I just don't have all the detail. I feel like there's nuance to this that we need to kind of understand. And with browsing plus Python tools and DeepSeek R1, which is one of my go-to right now when it works, is 9.4 currently, which is actually higher than OpenAI O1. And here you can kind of take a look at the humanities last exam. And I thought this was a very cool example where you get a representation of a Roman inscription originally found on a tombstone, provided translation for the Palmyrene script, a transliteration of the text is provided. So you can kind of see the complexity of the things that's being solved here. This just seems like a really interesting test, and I love seeing ones that actually score typically very low because that means that the models aren't trained off of those questions, which is getting harder and harder to do with these. I'll end with this. So back to the 50 cents of compute for $500 of value. This is where the world is going. Whether this is embellished is, to be determined. But I will say I have spent personally, I have commissioned work for my teams, for companies that I've worked at, for companies that I've owned, to have deep research done, and it can cost many thousands of dollars. How this will compare to that, I'm not totally sure, but I can't wait to find out. If this is true, though, it's going to impact billions of dollars. Like, this is going to be a many, many, many billions, if not trillion dollars of impact. Because if this impacts even a single percent of economic value, that is going to just change the paradigm of so much in the market. I'm excited to see what it is. And, it's amazing the tools that we're getting to use. So, what do you guys think? Are you excited about OpenAI's deep research? Do you currently use DeepSeek R1 with web search or Gemini's deep research? And how do you think it's going to compare to those? When I get my hands on it, I'll do some side by side comparisons with some similar topics to see how they do. I don't really know the overall impact this is going to have until I get my hands on it, but it does feel like we're moving more and more into a place where research, engineering, design, art, all of those are going to be highly automated with AI. And I think there isn't much left in white collar jobs that isn't going to be impacted deeply, like significantly with AI. There are other companies that I think that are pushing them forward to come out before they even wanted to. I'm not sure deep research would have came out if R1 hadn't been as good as it is. I'm just gonna be totally honest. Like, it just came out of nowhere, and there was a post recently where Sam Altman said that he wants going to move up some timelines. I have a feeling deep research was one of those timelines because they needed to show that they're still in this game and they can actually develop things that are going to be world class. Exciting times, I'll tell you. It's pretty big news. I would recommend checking out that video. I think I've given you a pretty good summary of everything. And let me know your thoughts below. Cheers.